Okay folks, I'm going to put a mortise in the top. What I've done is I've got the big G-clamp on that waste block, which is just about stuck to that plywood, and the little G-clamp holding the big G-clamp in position. We don't look to be far off level. That's always an issue when doing this. Hopefully it doesn't fly. Let's find out. Alright, that was pretty successful. Nice deep mortise. And I didn't go too deep, thankfully. Good, good, good.
Hello folks, welcome back to the channel. Bit of excellent camera work to kick it off there. Right, well this is part 2 of the Parquet flooring bowl, and I've decided to make a cake stand, or a pedestal platter, you can call it what you want. So the first job was to get rid of those 2 waste blocks. I'm not going to bore you with too much of that. Suffice to say, it was a laborious process. I got it nicely centered in the lathe, and I didn't want to just attack it with a chisel and hammer and break them off, so I turned through them. That's them gone now. I will say, putting that brass powder in the epoxy, wow, it made it hard. Really, really hard. So in the end, I broke out the carbide tool, and it was pretty blunt. But I used one of the tricks I'd seen on somebody's channel. It may have been Doug from Pole Barn's channel. If not, I can't remember where I saw it. But essentially you take the cutter off, and what I did, I got a 240 grit sandpaper pad and some WD-40, and just put the cutter on upside down and just moved it around in circles for a minute or so. And then I got an 800 grit pad and did the same thing again. And wow, it's sharp, really sharp now. So that's I've only got one of those cutters. I seem to have lost all my other ones, so I'm going to keep doing that and get a bit more life out of it. They're supposed to be sort of throwaway, use once until they're blunt sort of cutters, but if we can reuse them, then why not reuse them? So I've cut in so I could find the inside of that sycamore, and now I'm just making it round essentially. The epoxy, thankfully, with 80 psi, it did go all the way through all of that sawdust I put in, so that was dodged a bullet on that one. But yes, I only put just shy of a litre in, and so I only ended up with maybe 2 inches of epoxy in the bottom, which limited the thickness I could safely use on the top of the bowl. So where I can, I'm using my bowl gouge rather than the carbide, and it was turning really nicely through that sycamore. So here I'm just nibbling at it and slowly working my way down to what I thought was a nice foot width. And then back to the carbide for shaping the top. That bottom ring of Parquet flooring, because it was in the pot upside down, it floated maybe 1/4 of an inch up to the level of that piece of plywood I put on, which left me with a band of black epoxy. So I wanted to define that band with the carbide. So you've just seen me do that there. The hole I drilled in the top, the mortise, was maybe a 1/16 of an inch off centre. which is not bad considering how bad it could be when you're drilling it freehand like that. So it meant that one side of that bottom band of parquet flooring was slightly thicker than the other. You'll see that when it slows down. Now you might be wondering, why is there a hole in the middle of my foot? And that's there to let the air out when it was in the pressure pot. I didn't want to end up with a bubble in between the sycamore and the epoxy level, which did mean that I had to fill that hole with something, and eventually I put some sawdust and CA glue in there just to loosely fill it. So that's the mortise gone in, and I've just made a bit of a cove in the foot. Alright, time for sanding. Went straight in with a 240 grit pad. And went all the way up to 1000 grit. Plenty of sanding paste just to try and get rid of the fine lines in the epoxy. And then some shine juice. Okay, well, this is the part of the show where we get to showcase some of your work. And today we have some frankly astonishing bowls from Stephen Pearce of Persimmon Hill Woodworks, should say. These are amazing. It must have took some patience turning that off-center one. I can imagine all that weight flying around. Must have been a slow process. So thank you very much, Stephen, for sending those to me. And if you want your work to be featured on the show, then you can send your images to willmakeseverything@gmail.com. So we're on to the hollowing section. And this is going to be, like I said, a cake stand, which has got a flat top. Now the epoxy bit on the top of this is maybe an inch thick before it hits the sycamore foot, so I didn't want to go through the bottom of the parquet flooring and see any sycamore, so I was just nibbling at it, not going much lower than the level of that mortise I put in to begin with. And one thing I did notice, putting all that sawdust, when it's set with the epoxy, I didn't get any chip out at all. Usually you expect a little bit of chipping, but it actually turned really well. So we're just nibbling away at it, about 1/8 of an inch at a time, trying to keep it as flat as possible, which with a round tool is tricky, to say the least. Have to just go gently. I ended up putting a 40 grit pad on the 5-inch disc sander and just used that to to level the face of the piece, get it nice and flat. That's what I've just done there, up to 240 grit just there. And we went all the way to 1000 grit. A liberal coating of sanding paste, which is my own blend. It's a mix of waxes and oils and some abrasive powder. I think I've got a video a long time ago of how to make your own sanding paste. I may well do another one. And we finish off, as always, with a healthy coating of shine juice. I was talking to somebody in the comments about food safe finishes and that kind of thing, and we came to the conclusion that most finishes are food safe when they're fully cured. I wouldn't want to put soup in that and drink it straight away, but I think given enough time you can put whatever you want on it. It'll be just fine. So I'll leave you, as always, with the glamour shots. I think it came out pretty well, this piece. You have to ignore the little white specks on the side of the bowl. It's just dust that I didn't wipe off before taking the pictures. So sorry about that. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the video. And if you have, then click the old subscribe button. And put the notifications on, because I'm doing videos every day at the minute. And yeah, thanks for following along, and I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.